My name is Jake Laferriere. My title is founder and executive director of Firefighters for Healing.
So, what inspired you to create Firefighters for Healing?
Well, what inspired me was an event that I had as a second generation Minneapolis firefighter. So, kind of rewinding the clock a little bit. Um, so had a dream as a young kid. So my dad used to be a firefighter for the city of Minneapolis for many, many years. And when I was young, about 3 years old, he used to bring me down to the firehouse to, ride on the rigs and get candy and just go down there and check out the fire trucks. And I just loved it. So, I really started this childhood dream to be a, Minneapolis firefighter like my dad many, many years at that age. So, um, it took me many, many, many years to bring this dream to fruition. And it finally came to be a reality, in January 2001, where I actually took over in my dad's same firehouse used to take me to when I was a young kid. It's Fire Station 8. It's Minneapolis Fire Station 8. It's off 20th and Blaisdell. It's one of our busiest firehouses in the city. So I started my career, ironically, just where I was a little kid, kind of, riding the rig. So, long and behold, I spent a lot of years there having a lot of fun doing what everybody on the big red truck loves to do, is put the wet stuff on the red stuff and go to fires and help people on EMS calls and, shootings. So I had a great career. So I eventually, into the career a little bit, I was on a Rescue 9. I was at a fire station called Station 11. I was on a rig called Rescue 9, which was one of our two rescue companies here in the city of Minneapolis. We specialized in hazmat as well as just rescue operations. So kind of to sum it up, we are a big toolbox. So when there's something really, really bad happening, they'll call us. We're a big toolbox with a specialized skill set. So, like 35W bridge collapse, those kind of things
Yeah.
we will respond to. So anywho, kind of we're getting back on track here where the organization kind of was born is July 3rd, 2010. It was a Saturday. It was a beautiful Saturday, and I was working. I was going to the station to work that Saturday. It was our work day. We worked 24-hour shifts. So, and it was heading into the work that day, and it was just a beautiful Saturday morning. And heading in there, get in there to start our shift, and it's in the fire service. You're kind of like getting on shift. You're kind of heckling the off-going shift. So, Saturdays, it's pretty much you get in there, have some coffee, have some coffee talk. You're given, you're heckling the other shift, and you're learning what they did that day, the previous shift, and, where the rig's at, where the supplies, kind of like making sure the rig's in a good place and what they did. So we have an understanding of if there's anything we need to do. So anyway, we're kind of in shift change, and the Saturday routine as I'm throwing my stuff on the rig is rig day. So what we do on rig day is we wash the rig, we inventory the rig, we wash everything, all the hearse tools, all the saws, make sure there's gas in there. So pretty much standard day. So we're out there doing the rig stuff, and then being that we work 24-hour shifts, we're gonna go out, we eat lunch and dinner together, so we're gonna go out and grab some lunch. No big deal. This is about 11 o'clock when we're gonna go out. So we and the crew hop on the rig and we go to do our shopping at the quarry. There's a Rainbow over there. It's really close to the firehouse. So we're there kind of doing our shopping, and a run comes in, smoking the billing call. So no big deal. We just kind of run out to the rig. Our driver takes off, code 3, lights and sirens. We're done on our stuff on the way to the run, and we arrive because we're really close to the address. So we arrive, really, really right after the engine company. So engine 11 is arriving. They're the rig with the hose lines on there for your listeners. They actually have they lay the lines and put the water on the fire. We are a big truck, a big rig, and we're a ladder company, rescue company. So we're arriving right behind them. And as we pull up to the building, we have a 3-story. The engine company is doing what we call a size up. So a size up is just like an introduction of like what the incident commander, the first officer on site, is what he sees in terms of the building. We got us into the location. So he's sizing it up, saying we got a 3-story residential with a light haze, no visible fire. We're gonna get ready to lay a line. We're gonna flake out the hose. at this point, we're coming in, we're arriving right after, and then we're going to our job then at this point is to go in and do a primary search. So my captain and myself are going to go in there and make sure that everybody's out of the building, and simultaneously we're going to look for the seat of the fire. So we go up to the front door of this 3-story house, and we're donning our mask, getting ready to go, and we go in and kind of work our way up to the 3rd floor. And at this point, there really is just a haze, no fire at all. So we get up to the 3rd floor. There's a room up there. So my captain kind of goes to the left, and I go to the right, kind of meet in the halfway part in this room. And we can hear a fire crackling like a campfire. It's crackling and popping in the knee wall, so in the drywall, within the wall space. So at this point, it's pretty much a bread and butter fire, a standard fire, if there is such a thing in the fire service. So at this time, we're radioing down to Engine 11. Hey, we found the fire up here. Bring your hose line up here. We'll wait for you guys to get up here. We'll kind of chop into the wall and put the wet stuff on the red stuff, essentially, the water on the fire. So we hear them kind of coming up, stumbling up the stairs with the hose line. And at this point, I go to breach the wall with my axe. I go to chop into the wall where I think the fire is. So at this point, what happened was this fire was just starving for oxygen. It was an electrical fire that was smoldering in the knee wall. And when I chopped into the wall, I don't know if your listeners or your viewers or yourself have ever seen the movie in the 80s called Backdraft.
Oh, yeah.
So what happened was there was a backdraft that was ignited. So this fire that was smoldering got this introduction to oxygen, and it picked up because it had containment, fuel source, and ignition like a bomb. So the house actually picked up off the foundation with the explosion. In the midst of all this, I got blown 11 feet one way. The engine company with the water, this really was a bunch of fire. It was just a bunch of fire pushed these guys right down the stairs. We had no water, and their line was they just lost control of it. So it was going everywhere. And then my captain that was with me got blown the other way. So in the midst of all this, it really was an inferno. So it was floor to ceiling fire and wall to wall fire. It was just an inferno. In the back of you can see that's the fire up there I was in. I jumped. At this point, I had a beam of sunlight that hit me in the eyes, actually, and was my trail out, essentially. So I followed the sunlight to the 3rd-story window, where I yelled for a ladder, and I didn't get a ladder. They couldn't get it there in time, and I just jumped. I was on fire, and I jumped from the 3rd floor. By the grace of God, I landed on that porch overhang that was there and saved my life, or I wouldn't be here talking to you today. People ask, would you really jump out of a building? And I can tell you, when you start burning, you're going to do whatever it is to stop burning. So right. Everything on my SCBA, everything, my helmet, my mask, everything was melted up. I was in rough shape. So I gained composure on that overhang. They had a ladder there, and I kind of walked myself down to the ambulance, and I didn't know how bad it was at this point, Michael. I knew, I didn't know. So I kind of was walking down to the end of the block where the ambulance was, and people were looking at me, and they couldn't look at me. They were just kind of moving their head the other way. So I knew at this point, like, they're seeing something I am. So at the first point, I go to take my turnout coat off, and all my skin is hanging off my hands at this point. And the amount of pain that I'm feeling within my hands, particularly because I had my gloves off to feel for the heat in the room and the knee wall. So I hopped in the ambulance. They got, they got me going with some pain management, some morphine, and that did nothing. Then they whisked me code 3 down to our hospital here downtown Minneapolis called Hennepin Healthcare. They admitted me into the stab room where they're stabilizing me. And I had 3rd and 4th degree burns to my hands, and I had 2nd degree from a vast majority of my upper extremities, my face, my arms, my back. It broken my talus bone on this, which is your main bone in your foot, that was broke on that huge fall, and hurt my knee and stuff. So anyway, and I'm in there, and basically I was admitted now at this point for all this, and I was started to undergoing skin graft surgeries where they take skin off donor sites of your body that's not burned, and then they start to put it over places like my hands were burned. when the burns are so deep, like they burned down to the tendons. I didn't have any dermis left, any skin left. So I spent just shy of 4 weeks in this burn unit before I checked myself out. I should have been there a lot longer, but I really didn't. At this point, I didn't really want to live much anymore, Michael. I was really just struggling to live, knowing that my career as a firefighter would be, taken away, and I wasn't going to have same function on my hands and all these things. So anyway, I was really in a bad place, in a rough place, in a dark place. So it really wasn't until two little boys that entered my life that changed really my trajectory and the perspective that I had on life. And really what happened is one day these two little boys, a 3 and a 5-year-old, were admitted to the room next to me in the burn unit. But when they rolled them in on this gurney, they had bad facial burns and they were really in rough shape. And these two little boys were living in a tent because their family fell in hard times. And the 3-year-old found a lighter, started playing with the lighter. And next thing you know, the 5-year-old goes in and pulls little brother out. And in the midst of all this, they're badly burned. Well, anyway, I see these two little boys and they're way worse than I am. And I got to thinking, if they can get through this, I can get through this. And they didn't even have a choice in the matter. So all these things kind of ran through my head. So I really changed my perspective from being inward on myself to outward on, like, they can do it, I can do it. So I started digging in and it really changed the trajectory. So at this time, what happened was there was a bunch of news, stories that went out, and the community started to rally for us. They knew we were injured, and they threw a big fundraiser downtown Minneapolis here at this place called Seven Sushi. And there was hundreds of people, Michael, that came, many departments, just hundreds. It was a sea of people there. And they raised a bunch of money for us. And I was at this event. I was so torn and so sad for these two little boys that I thought, who's advocating for them? There's nobody advocating for them. Like, who's going to support them? So at this point, I knew in my heart, like, something had changed, and I knew we had to do something for these two little boys. So at this time, we took $5,000 of these dollars that were raised for us, and we donated over to a burn unit over here locally, a Regions burn unit, where it sent some kids out to a pediatric camp. So when they have scars like me, they can go and not be singled out and judged, and they can just be around other kids like them. And this is really a healing component modality process of the next stage in terms of healing from burns. So anyway, this is when the organization Firefighters for Healing was essentially born. And really at this time in 2010, it was born. And then I guess it kind of evolved into much more, I'll tell you later. But the key, like, tenets of what the organization started doing early on were, we were going to start by, helping kids that were burn survivors. And we started by sending kids to a burn camp. And then what we did kind of simultaneously is, like, we started bringing fire trucks of gifts down to the burn unit every Christmas for kids. And we bring that in there, and it wasn't really just the toys, but it was really going and bringing in a lot of hope and, a really mindful, loving perspective for them, and showing them that people are there for them, strangers, community, people they've never met that care about them. So we would just go running in there with all this love and cheer, holiday cheer, and it really changed everybody's perspective. So it started with the Christmas blessing, and then that kind of grew. We sent kids to a burn camp for many, many years in Colorado. And then what happened is we started needing to know, let's create our own burn camp. So for many, many years of talk, we finally created our own burn camp, which is called Camp Red, and that stands for Realize Every Dream. So now we've been running our own pediatric family burn camp for 7 years, and it's up here in Minnesota in a splendor of a community, a town called Cross Lake, Minnesota. In there, we're on a beautiful peninsula of land where these kids, these families can come up there for a week, and they can be around other kids like them. They can go to the waterfront, embrace their scars. They can, see things. They can do archery. They can have, different crafts and activities that are really systematically put in for therapy. so they can work towards all this. And it's a big part of their healing. And then it's camaraderie and community. And this builds like friends, long lasting friends. And this is a part of their healing. So then it kind of started there. And then what happened was, after we brought that, Michael, to fruition, both these things, we then went back to our docs here locally and said, what more can we do for the burn community here at our hospital? Like, where are there more needs? And at this point, our main burn doc said, hey, listen, we need housing from our families, since we service 7-state reach here. And we need housing. So, okay, we'll figure this housing out. So, we started really small in scale with, hotel stays, Michael. We started doing hotel stays, so when families would come in 7-state reach, when their loved one was being treated here, they would come here and they would need a place. Their families would need a place while their children or their parents or their siblings or whoever was in the burn unit being treated for their burns. So we had hotel partnerships that we did, for a long time. And then hotels got really expensive, and it really wasn't the best, kind of way to do it. So then what we did was we went to our good friends at Carl Sanderson here locally. He's a construction company, and they built a new building right by our burn unit here locally, which was a 15-story building. And we got 3 apartments where we subleased 3 of them at first for our families. So 3 became 2, like, we're full. Then 3 went to 5. 5 went to 7. And then we thought, gosh, this is started back in 2018. We started doing this. And we're like, wow, we need to figure something more long-term, more sustainable, and more, we just can't rent something. So then at this point, we were in the midst of others, like, we got to build our own building.
Yeah.
We got to build a healing center, a one-of-a-kind in North America transitional healing center. So at this point, our board chair, Chris Dunker, and myself, we kind of scoured the whole U.S. and outside the U.S. for somebody that's done something similar in scale to this. And we found, like, Ronald McDonald houses, but nobody that really kind of serviced the burn community. And then, so we found one in Vancouver. First, so we hopped on a plane and we flew up to Vancouver, and we met with a place called the BC Burn Fund. So there was, at the time, her name was Lisa. And I had a friend, another burn survivor that I met along the way, that helped make introductions. So we started working with Lisa and their whole team on, how they did this development piece that they did with their healing center. So we got their schematics, their blueprints, their drawings, their fundraising, framework. We really dug into everything that we could learn from them. And then we flew back here and we just jumped off the plane running, essentially. And it took us just over 7 years, Michael, to figure out how to bring our own transition healing center to fruition. We did that. We just had a ribbon cutting last Wednesday. It took us that long to figure out how to build this. And what it's a first of its kind in North America, and I can share this with you, is like the Shriners in Galveston, they have some trailers.
Right.
There's places that have housing, but ours is the first of its kind because we built it out like a firehouse, like an old firehouse. So in the midst of all this summer, the oldest fire station in Minneapolis, called Station 1, it's off Portland and 3rd Street down here. It was early 1900s fire station when they happened to be tearing this down in the time that we were building our transition healing center. So we talked to the developer and the builder about getting their pole, all the old brick, some of the alarms, like all these like cool artifacts. We were able to get out of Station 1, and then we used them in our architects used them in our build out of our own healing center. So when you come into our healing center, we wanted it to feel like an old firehouse where you'd feel a natural community, camaraderie, safety, security kind of flow to it, right? So now we have a fire pole in our new healing center, all this old brick, an old fire truck. We got a beautiful mural that was painted up there that depicts the whole chronology from the fire I just talked about to, where this kind of all came to be, the foundation. So really, overall, just what we do at Firefighters for Healing what our mission is we serve the burn survivors in ways where insurance companies and caregivers are unable. And we also expanded our mission not only to burn survivors, but firefighters and first responders as a whole. And the reason why we did that was when I had to retire from firefighting, it was a really, really difficult thing for me. It was a loss. It took me, and maybe not as significant as losing a loved one, but it's pretty similar. It took me many years to be able to work through this loss before I could go into a firehouse. But I love the fire, service so much that what I thought, what more can we do for them? How can we serve them in a way that they've never been served? So we opened our healing center up now for any firefighter or first responder needing any place to stay, and they're coming into the Twin Cities for cancer, cardiac, PTSD. I mean, you name it. We have a laundry list of stuff that they can stay now in our healing center, and they're doing that already. We've had apartments that we've been doing this since 2018. So now with our new healing center, that's kind of, we opened up our mission to that. So that's just a quick, really synopsis, a high level of how the organization Firefighters Healing was born, from the experience was. And then, throughout the time of that, we've gained a lot of traction, and it's really morphed into, a bigger picture thing. At one, a couple of years, really what helped us back in 2015, really what helped us kind of catapult our momentum, to really kind of capture the things that we're doing. Well, there are two things. Well, number one is really, this is, all this is, I wouldn't be here talking to you today if it wasn't by the grace of God. Like, first of all, if you ask anybody in the fire service, like, how rare are backdrafts, well, they're in the millions. They really can't happen. It's a perfect storm, is what the investigator said. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, if a backdraft does happen and you're able to get, jump on fire from 3 stories and survive, like, it definitely was a divine intervention. And the big guy upstairs had way more going on. And so all grace to God. And then when in the midst of all this, in 2015, we won this award. And it was by the American Heroes Channel. And it was an inaugural award in a 9/11 hero named Wells Crowther. And he is a hero because he saved 12 people in the South Tower before he gave his life on 9/11. And in this story, really, all the survivors were able to really figure out who Wells was, because Wells used to wear a red handkerchief, a red bandana around his face. So all these survivors kept going back. There was a man in a red bandana. So anyway, Allison Crowther, her mother, Wells's mother, actually went through and reading through New York Times and really put this all together. That it was Wells that did it. So this story it's paramount on the South 9/11 story that President Obama actually shared in his 10-year inauguration of all this. So it's a story, and we won this award. In the midst of this, we learned, it was our work. It wasn't, it was our impact here in the community that we were doing that won this award, but it helped us create the legs and catapulted a lot of momentum to really help us kind of like drive these big picture initiatives to fruition. Like, because we really are a small organization doing extraordinary things, having a huge impact. But that kind of helped us. And really my faith throughout this has really kind of kept me steadfast on my path moving forward. And a lot of amazing people on our board and collaborators, supporters like yourself that have reached out. But that's the quick synopsis of the organization. So I'll kind of push pause really quick and, open it up if you had any comments or you have any questions you wanted to kind of drill into there.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely had a higher purpose. So with creating the organization and helping the families, how has that helped your healing process, both physically and mentally?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point you bring up. Like, I think a big part of this, without the organization giving back the way that I do, it's ongoing, therapy for me and healing for me. And without it, I wouldn't be where I'm at today without it. Like, to try to tell you, like, this has been an easy journey. It hasn't. And I can get back in the weeds pretty quick on this stuff. And, these injuries and all the other things, like, if I didn't have this to do and get up a purpose worth living for every single day that's greater than myself, I don't know where I'd be today. And it is a part of my ongoing process of healing, psychologically, to your point, and physically. and also others too, like others that have gotten involved with our organization, either survivors or firefighters, or it's also their ongoing healing of their way. It's kind of a healing modality for them as well, a healing mechanism for them as well, so they can be a part of something. One thing I loved so much, even outside of just being a burn survivor, is one thing that I miss so much about the fire service is the camaraderie, right? So, you share a lot of days, a lot of meals, a lot of good times, a lot of bad times with your brothers and sisters, and they become like almost closer than your family. So, one thing when I lost that, I was really starving for was how can we recreate something like that, like in our own organization, Firefighters for Healing? And we've really kind of cultivated a beautiful camaraderie within our board. Like people, it fills their buckets up every single day to kind of serve a purpose greater than yourself. And one of the unique components to it that I've never really, I've figured out a long time ago is it's not like ego keeps you alive in the fire service. That's what it really is good for, is it keeping you alive. But within this philanthropy work, like you don't really, there's no ego. I learned a long time ago is you got to keep your focus outwards on the mission. And if you're doing that, the mission will move forward. And the moment you move your focus inwards on like, what's in this for me kind of thing, this is the moment things don't work so good. So we've been able to cultivate a beautiful harmonious like type of culture here, of not only a meaningful purpose, but meaningful relationships here. So it is almost better than the fire service. And these people that I'm blessed to be a part of, I get to share the wins, the not so good days with them, just like I did in the fire service. And they've really enriched my life. And they've inspired me to be a better version of myself every single day. So it's a kind of ongoing therapy, not only for me, but everybody. It changes the world. It's like nuclear power. So
You were talking a little bit about the burn camps you created. How does it feel seeing the faces of kids that could just, enjoy themselves with people going through similar experiences?
yeah, I mean, interesting you say that is, so the two little boys that were in the burn unit with me, Cameron and Caden, their names, or I can say them because they're close to me and I love them. Um, well, many years went on with our burn camp before they could come, but we worked really hard to get them to come to our burn camp, and they finally did. Both of them, they're in different foster care um, houses, so they're not together in terms of where they live, so they don't really get a chance to see each other so much. But they finally come to camp, and they get to be together. I get to be with them. I'm not a parent, but I get a little kind of glimpse on how awesome and amazing it is to be a parent. We have this unique bond with children. Mine isn't so much like biology or just a DNA bond, but a bond of trauma, a bond of surviving something that's really profound and life changing in your life. And this camaraderie and this bond that I have with them is I've been through this with them. I'm a survivor as they are, and I get to share this at camp with them and share the same space with them and share this love that really changes the trajectory of not only our healing, long term, but just the course of the world. So yeah, I get to see them. I get to meet so many cool children that are really now not just burn survivors, but they're thriving and they're burn thrivers. They're thriving, and part of their experience has really changed who they are as a human as well, and they're able to make positive impacts and changes. So this camp is much more than just a camp that you envision in terms of going up north and going canoeing and having campfires.
Right.
It's much more profound than that, and it changes the world. So it's changed theirs, it's changed mine. I I look forward, to going every year, and I get to go up there with them and to see the smiles, to see the healing, to see the community, the camaraderie, the connections they're making, life-changing connections. It's beyond and transcends anything I can tell you over this interview. It really is that. It's just transcends all that. It's transcendent. So anywho, it's profound, and it's a lifelong fulfilling of mine. So
So you've made, incredible progress with the organization already, but where would you want to see the organization in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I've had this question before, and it's really for me, it's I think I did an interview a week ago, and the one guy said to me, he says, "Well, you just made it sound like you got here and it was just like this, really, just went and did this." And it's like you didn't really go do it. Like what's been going on the last 12 and a half years, over 12 and a half years is, I mean, to get a building done in Minneapolis, downtown by US Bank Stadium, it's $1 billion stadium. Like there's hundreds and hundreds of meetings that went into it, and
Right.
time and energy that I really carved into it and stuff. And I guess you talk about like, looking forward a bit, being kind of what's the next thing, kind of the, audacious things, or what is the goals. And I think number one is we got to get this building paid off. I mean, it's a $6.2 million capital campaign that we have going on right now. We want to pay this off, get this free and clear, so we're not praying for bricks and mortar anymore, debt on that. What we want to do then is work towards creating an endowment, which we already are, that will then make this legacy of healing sustainable. So when I'm gone, all of us are gone, that this is important, that this carries on as a legacy of healing. That's what we call it, a legacy footprint of healing in downtown Minneapolis. So it'll continue on to feed this thing, the programming that goes within it to help people, burn survivors, firefighters, and first responders, and nobody needs to go and do anything. So that's the next 3 to 5 years is doing that. I've had other people say, "Hey, would you want to do this in different geographies?" And it's like, we want to really perfect what we've done here, and then we can grow it out. We can definitely grow it outwards. And I'm not opposed to that. Those are our big picture, our big rocks in terms of next steps of what we need to achieve. And then, be happy to help anybody else, do something similar in scale outside our, geography. So sustainability is important for us, making sure this thing will run. And there's no sense of building a healing center if you can't keep it sustainable. So
What advice would you give young firefighters just coming into the industry?
well, I'll tell you what, my mentor in the fire service was a really special person to me. His name is Ron Jagaka. He was a gunner, a machine gunner on a Huey. And he did many, many tours, and he's the apex of a firefighter. As I always, he used to drive the front of the ladder truck, and I drive the till, the ladder in the back. I drive the back of it. It's called Tiller Man. And he told me when I got on the job one time, he says, "Kid, you just won. You got a winning lottery ticket. You won the lottery." And I really believe that wholeheartedly. I still to this day, like, it's really, back in the day with, take a civil service test, it was really, really rare to even get through. It took me 10 years to, bring this childhood dream to fruition, to be a fireman like my dad. But I guess my advice would be to anybody getting in the fire service right now is, you really did win the lottery. Like, enjoy that experience. And like all the senior people told me at the time, like, this is going to go quick. And when you're young and kind of like, you think you're invincible, and, you're just green. And at that time, in a rookie, like, you think that the world is yours and stuff, but I'd say appreciate every moment of it and appreciate the job for what you have. Like, it is a winning lottery ticket. It was the best job in the world to go and get an opportunity to help those that need it most, day in and day out. So, embrace that opportunity that you have. It's not a job. It's a calling. It's just it's a winning lottery ticket. So embrace it, enjoy it, and it goes quick. And you never know what's going to change your life within the span of your career as well. Like, we never knew we were walking into that storm. Been to a lot of fires, almost gave my life a couple different times along the thing, but that fire, we did everything right, and we couldn't have did anything different. It just was what it was, and we didn't know. We're not holding I don't have a crystal ball. None of us do. So enjoy every moment and every day of the career.
How can people reach out to you?
Yeah. They can find us on www.firefighters, plural with an S, for forhealing.org. They can find us on our website. And it's not really like this huge, abundance of a website. It's really easy to navigate. They can go on there and within a couple minutes, they can figure out pretty much everything they need. But it talks to all of our initiatives that going on, our camp, healing center. We got a lot of videos on there in terms of a lot of the stuff, content that we've done, testimonials of the impact that we're having on there too. There's volunteer opportunities. They can click on there. There's a link that brings it to our volunteer coordinator. We're always looking for people to help out at these events or at the healing center, or just if they're outside our geography, just spreading the word on us. And if people have the means, from a monetary capacity, we always need help with the capital campaign. So those are really the top of the mind things. They can find a lot of information on there. And then I'd say follow us on our social media properties too. We're on all of them, like Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook as well. So yeah, that's where they can find us.